I'm going to do a look today that is great for a dinner date, simply because I'm going out tonight and I'm going out for dinner, and it was kind of it wasn't 100%. I didn't know about it until really today, or I'd actually forgotten about it. So I've just picked up some products. Some I've used before, some I haven't, and because I was thinking about obviously dinner makeup and dinner date makeup, so I thought, well, I've got to do my makeup, I'll film it and I'll share it with you. So I'm going to start by doing my base. I'm going to start with the YSL Touche Éclat foundation, simply because I know this very well, and not that I'm going to be sort of taking pictures or anything, but I do know it photographs well, having used it on the red carpet. But also it's got a nice amount of coverage for an evening, so you can kind of get that really perfected look. I'm just going to use my fingers because I'm not going to use it everywhere. I'm mainly going to use it around the center of my face. So next I'm going to use a clean Kabuki brush. This is really good just to have in your kit, because once you've finished your makeup, obviously if you go out for dinner, you're sitting quite close to people and you don't want to have that kind of makeup sitting on the surface. So it's really nice just to go over the top of your foundation with a clean Kabuki. It just takes the very surface layer off and kind of blends everything really seamlessly, particularly all around those edges. Make you a little bit pink for a minute because you're buffing your skin a bit, but it just takes off that little bit on the top and blends everything in. So it's a really good thing to have. Okay, so next I'm going to use concealer. I'm going to mix my light reflective concealer, put that on the back of my hand, with my heavier concealer, which is my Mercier. I'm going to mix them together. Take a bit of the Mercier first, and then on the back of my hand mix that in with the light reflection. So it's a tiny bit heavier than just using the light reflective pen on its own, just because it's kind of a night out, and also I want to make sure it really sticks. And the Mercier, or those kind of solid concealers that aren't too greasy, tend to really stay put. So it's almost like a little bit of extra insurance. The other thing you can do if you do find that your concealer doesn't really last is you can use a primer, so like an eyeshadow primer, and just run that along underneath your eyes first and then put your concealer on. So I'm going to use highlighter, and I'm going to use the Stila All Over Shimmer, and this is nice because it's got a little bit of pink, a little bit of gold, so it's not kind of neutrally. I'm going to just apply that around the top of my cheekbones and then just buff those edges in with my clean buffing brush. Make sure it's really nicely blended and seamless. Okay, so I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of powder on, because that's quite a dewy foundation and I will need a touch of powder. I'm not going to put very much on at the moment because I'm going to have a touch up again later, and I'd rather stay shiny now while I'm at home, and then if I need to give myself some powder, I'm not going to get, it's not going to build up too much. So I'm going to start with my eyes. I'm going to use the Urban Decay Primer Potion. This is slightly yellow tinted. And just really pat that in and blend it. Oh, I can feel it setting already. That sets quick. So I'm planning on doing a slightly deeper lip, maybe a red, a kind of stain. So I'm going to do a defined but neutral eye. I'm going to use one of these palettes by Bourjois. This is one of their Smoky palettes. I'll start with the colour in the centre, which is the highlighter. It's quite glittery, this, but I thought I'll just dab on the lid to start with and just kind of buff that to nothing. Now I'm going to use this kind of mid-tone shade. It's sort of a greyish colour, greyish brown. I'm going to just put that at the outer edge underneath along the lower lashes, and then kind of bring that out a little bit, just a sort of guideline. This is a quick and sort of cheaty way of doing a slightly lifted eye without having to make it complicated. So you just sort of trace, let me get a Q-tip, from the underneath up. You can even use your Q-tip to kind of create the shape. It just swoops up from there. Then using the bigger brush, I'm going to mix the same shade. You kind of join it up on the top, just at the outer corner. And you can just kind of really simply cheat a kind of winged eye. And then just keep blending it. Has to be kind of soft because it's sort of creating a shadow rather than a definite graphic shape that you can see. The more you blend it, actually, the better it gets. So next I'm going to use a gel eyeliner. This is the Rimmel one, Scandaleyes, in brown. I'm going to use the brush it comes with because it's actually really good. And then I'm mimicking my shadow. So I'm just going to do a line which is mainly at the outer edge. Just keep looking down into a mirror. And then where we've got that line that was coming from underneath before, we're just going to go up. It doesn't need to show, so this is fine even if you're a bit more hooded, because it's more about just creating more of a vibe and fitting in with the shadow that we had before, really just to intensify a little bit. And that's the brush that had the brown eyeshadow on, so just using that to kind of blend in a bit. So once you've got the shape, I'm just going back in with the darkest shade from the palette, so whichever colours you're using, just a really dark shade, and just keep buffing over the edge of your line there, just to add a little bit more intensity at that outer corner. So to finish off the eyes, I'm going to go in with the lightest shade of brown, which is this one, and just buff over everything, so all over the lid. It'll create a little bit more of a socket line effect, and then with this just keep opening your eyes, looking straight ahead. It'll help just to buff everything in and bring everything together. So the lighter colour that I used at the beginning, it'll buff in the liner, it'll buff in the deeper shadow. Nice big brush, lots of circles. That just brings it all together. So I'm going to curl my eyelashes now. My eyelash perm, my lift is all gone, so I'm back to the curlers and lots of mascara in black right down to the roots, particularly at the outer edge, because we've got this winged effect going on. Although it's really soft and subtle, it can be further enhanced if we really focus a little bit extra on those outer corner lashes. And a touch underneath, using this brush to kind of get into those funny to reach areas, right into the roots, just taking it all the way along. I'm just going to use my finger actually just to smudge those edges. Just want to make it more about those outer edges than the inner corners. So once the mascara's on, go back to your brush that you used to do your little wings and just soften everything underneath, just to give a slightly smokier feel, because there's not much left on the brush as well. Right, we want a fabulous brow for our date makeup. I'm going to use a pencil and just fill in all those gaps, and I'm going to thicken my brows a little bit more. Lots of really light strokes, so close up it looks like a defined brow, but not like an overdrawn brow. So for sort of contouring and blush, I'm going to go quite soft, because again, you're sitting across the table from someone, you're quite in close proximity, so you don't want to have the too heavily sculpty brown kind of lines. I'm going to use this palette because it's slightly lighter than my skin tone. I mean, it's quite pale for my skin tone. I'm going to use the sculpty colours first. This is by Guerlain, and it's nude number 1, so it's going to be really subtle, really subtle, and it also has a touch of pink, so I can kind of use it to generally sculpt and blush. So it's just kind of warming up my skin a little bit, just a fraction, and sculpting just a tiny bit, a little bit at the top. Okay, so for lips, I'm going to use this Revlon Colour Stay stain, And this it's red, but I'm going to really blot it down. So it's got the little doe foot applicator. I'm going to get ready with my lip brush because I want to really smudge it in. And if I get too much of the product, then I'm able to blend it straight away. So I'm just going to start to go along the lower lip rather. I'm going to blend the clean brush as I'm kind of going along. So I just want to get a stain on the lips first. I'll do the shape later because I want this to stay on. I'm going to eat, drink, all the rest of it, and I don't want it to come off. So I'm just following the natural lip line to start with. And this has a mixture of what we call volatile oils and non-volatile oils. So when some of the oils have evaporated off, you're left with that stain, but it still gives you that moisturization. So that's kind of my first layer. So I'm going to let that evaporate a little bit, let that kind of sink in, and I'm just going to get a lip pencil actually. So next I'm going to use a lip liner, and this is also the Colour Stay by Revlon. This is rose though, so it's not red, so I'm able to really cheat and buff. This is still very moisturising, which is so lovely. I think it's a really great formulation for a long-lasting lipstick and a stain, that it genuinely stays moisturising. So I'm able to buff over it with the pencil. So for me, it's my lower lip that's smaller, so I always buff over. If you do this right, people will think you've had your lips done, and you haven't. So I think it's clever lip lining is everything. So all over. Blend onto the lip. This is going to last all night. Into the corners. And then just perfect your shape. So just step back, look into the mirror. Smile slightly because it helps underneath. And buff. If you do feel like you've gone kind of too much over the edge, oops, here's my pencil, my brush rather, then just have a little smooth again. And now back in with my red stain, straight from the applicator this time. Just blend that in a little bit, and then I'm going to use my pencil, my brush. Just smooth in. Let that formulation do its magic. So I'm just finishing off, for me, with a little bit of pink blush, simply because whenever I wear a red lip or a strong lip, I always look washed out no matter what, so I kind of need that. And also it helps for me to keep the makeup very fresh looking and stop it getting too heavy. So that's the finished look. It obviously looks like you've made a real effort, but it's not like you've tried too hard. Obviously we have tried quite hard, but it's not looking obviously like we've really tried too hard. I think it's a nice look whether you're going for a special dinner with a group of girlfriends, or a special dinner date with your boyfriend or your husband. And I think it's just a really nice look to wear because everything is so seamless and blended and not too dramatic, like the winged liner and all of that stuff and the contour. So it looks good really close up, but also you have got the definition, so it looks good from further away as well. And yeah, it just feels really nice and comfortable. My lips feel very moisturized, and I'm quite excited now to go for my dinner. So you enjoy your dinner too, and I'll see you